Hi, I'm the Now Visitor, and you are watching TrekCulture.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
I was just joking with Ellie there. I was saying, wait till you see, I'm going to stand up, walk over, play with lights, and Anna's going to join the call and hear you.
I was waiting to join until you did that.
I just appreciate the effort you put in for it. Like to have the secret cameras installed that you knew when to. That's just.
It's a lot. It's elaborate, but it's worth it.
I applaud it. Well done.
That's the dedication.
This is what I'm bringing to Trek culture at the moment. The new perspective, the new viewers.
Wonderful.
It is fun. We're getting the, oh my God, what do you mean this happened? We're like, yeah, it happened in 1994. Oh, you've just seen it for the first time. Right, that makes
sense. Which gives you a whole perspective of the things that you go, wait a minute, and you have to realize 1990s, what that time was.
Yes, I do. And I think it's good as well. I see the progression. I see it in a different way. I'm watching everything with a 2024 view.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it, and noticing those changes, especially when you jump to the newer stuff and then you see where things have been tweaked and how conversations have now been had. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But I'm very, very much enjoying my journey into Star Trek. It's quite daunting to start with, but I'm getting there.
Well, it's just so huge. I know what that feels like, because when I came to write the book, I was in a certain kind of denial that I'd actually have to watch all the shows. I was like, yeah, I know that. No, you have to watch all the shows. And it's a lot. It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah. Do you know what? You've answered one of my questions already, because I was going to ask about that, actually. I think a lot of Star Trek fans assume that every actor that's ever been in Star Trek must have watched all of Star Trek, must know everything there is to know about Star Trek, which for the most part is not the case. So yeah, to go back and watch all these characters, I assume that you know a lot of the actors more as actors as opposed to as their characters. So did you kind of get that understanding, or moments of, oh, that's what all these fans are seeing? That's what it is.
Because I know them more as actors. I know them as friends, and decades long relationships, and to hear what the viewers thought, or how Gates McFadden's character moved them, was revelatory. And to see, I had all kinds of expectations of Jerry Ryan's character, 7 of 9. I went, oh yeah, I know what that is. But I didn't watch it. I didn't see it. I didn't understand the arc. I didn't understand the importance and what she brought to it, and what the writers did with that character. So yeah, my mind was blown many times over in many ways.
That was like it's having read, because the previous couple of times we've had a chance to speak, obviously I hadn't read the book. Now I have read the book, and there was a lot of things that were very, very surprising, and a lot of things that it was surprising that I wasn't surprised to hear it. And it was, obviously some of the treatment that people received throughout the years. But probably, I would imagine one of the number one questions you've been asked over the last while is, what was the impetus? What was the catalyst to go, I want to put this project together, to explore this perspective of the Star Trek experience? What was sort of the day one, what inspired you?
Ben Robinson said, would you do this book? Because I think it's an important concept, but I shouldn't be writing it. A woman should. So that was a man opening a door, stepping aside and saying, walk through it. And that's the kind of door opening that we always need. And he also allowed me to change the expectations of the book, the book was originally going to be a little bit about each character and an artistic rendering of them and maybe what their archetype was. And I immediately wanted to tell more of a story. And to his credit, he was just like, all right, go. And really let me tell it. It was going to be
Right.
about the characters and what they represented to the audience, and just very straightforward, a paragraph each. It wasn't supposed to be 300 pages, and it wasn't supposed to be so, it crosses a lot of things. It's a story of Hollywood. It's a story of me and my progress as a woman. It's a story of how Star Trek can so well tell that story. If you look from the 60s to the present day, there aren't that many franchises. Are there any other than Star Trek that cover that kind of, decades long territory and tells this story of uh, what we were trying to do, what the show was trying to achieve for women, what we were actually going through, and also a look at where we were stuck.
I'm very glad that it changed direction. I think a lot of people already know about the characters. We've sat there and we've got to know those characters and we've drawn those conclusions ourselves. But to hear from the people behind those characters, I think is much more insightful, and something that I think a lot of people forget. There is a real person behind that mask that you're watching. So those are the stories we should be hearing.
And it's a very unique show in the sense that I think there are two things. I think Nichelle Nichols is certainly, for me, her example taught me responsibility, taught me the importance of what was being put out there, that our narratives, our storytelling really supported people in many different ways. But also, as we're shooting, we're meeting audience members who give us feedback and who make us realize that this has impact. Pay attention. If it's 2 a.m, wake up. Someone needs to hear this scene, this point, this emotion, So it's unique in that way.
And so you had that inspiration. You've had Ben, who is very lovely. We've had the pleasure of meeting Ben. He's a lovely guy. So you've been told this. So how long has that process been? How long has it taken you to compile all those interviews and put it all together?
And I feel like it's not over. There's so many more I wanted to get. It was so frustrating. It was overwhelming how much there was to do. And at the end of the day, you have to go, well, my time is up. Ben is saying, that's it. We got to go. We got to make this a book. I'm bad with linear time, but I think it was about 3 years. Of course, it was during the pandemic, so that was problematic. And we started filming all the interviews and ended up having to do Zoom because we couldn't get on set to do the new ones. I took advantage of the London conventions where everyone came, and oh my gosh, I had the Women of Discovery there, and so I could interview them there. But yeah, and I would do an interview. I remember interviewing Andy Kindred, who was executive secretary at the original Star Trek for one of the writers and one of the producers. And I had to stop. I went, I don't know enough. I need to look at some books. I need to understand, I'll never understand it, but be made aware of what Black women go through. Not just my experience. What is that? So I'd stop and I'd read a book. An excellent one is Jessica Nordell's The End of Bias, A Beginning. So I'd stop and I'd do that. And then I'd find out that one of the women in the original Star Trek wrote a book. So I'd stop everything, read that, and then go back. And I kept doing that, going, wait a minute, what are young feminists thinking? And I'd stop everything and read about that. So it was really, I became an autodidact. I educated myself to a lot of things that I wasn't used to thinking about, which in itself is something, I mean, my God, if we could all do that, it's really helpful. I find it really helpful.
I'm not even joking when I say like I would love a title like for a PhD or an A or just to add to your name after this because this reads like a thesis. This is a research
Thank you.
project. I mean, thank you. If you're happy with this, I'm going to refer to you as Dr. Nana for the rest of the interview.
I really love that. I can't tell you how much I love that.
Because it is, obviously part of research is discovering what we don't know, and it can be so frustrating because as you've described, you mid interview going, there's other questions I know I could be asking, but I don't know what to ask.
Yes. Yeah.
So I suppose, this is a very simple way of putting this, is like, what was there like one or two biggest like challenges or maybe frustrations in this process that sort of coming from that?
I would say that I struggled with myself. It was very personal. I'm used to being interviewed. So I'd watch an interview back and it's like, shut up, Nana, shut up and just let them talk. And, that's something you have to learn. I certainly didn't know it. I didn't, there was so much that I didn't understand until I look back at my time on Deep Space Nine. I didn't understand the particular crust of the times I grew up in that stopped me from thinking for myself. And that was very often a frustrating and painful process. You have to be honest with yourself, I found, and you have to tell the truth. I remember, oh gosh, it was a very famous song, say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. Do you remember that song at all? Can't remember the artist.
Yeah, but I can't tell you who sang it.
And I would get on my bike. I would be like, and I'd go upstairs and I'm in the basement right now. This is where I wrote my book and this is where I do all this stuff. And so I'd climb up to the top where my Peloton bike is and blast that song and cry and go, yeah, be brave, tell the truth about yourself. Scary, do it. Because unless we start being honest, unless an older woman starts being honest about her experience, younger women will never have those questions in their mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that was something I wanted to say, actually. I really wanted to thank you and commend you for being so open about your own experiences and your own traumas. I mean, it takes courage to do that, to take something that's traumatic and turn it into a power. And you speak a lot in the book about your journey to recovery and therapy. Did writing about it and telling your story in this way, did that help you personally in your own journey?
I think it did. At first, it was painful. It was not something I wanted to put down, I found. I thought I did. But then when I started to do it, I would, you know what? I think the dogs need grooming. I think, wait a minute, my closet, I better get that done. It was like anything to avoid sitting down and being in that space and doing it. But I did. And yeah, I wrote in the book, this is pretty interesting. I wrote in the book about being able to feel where the gun was on my head, which was right here. And I was really close. I've had neck surgery. I was close to having it again, but they couldn't find the source. They did an ablation, which kills the nerves on that side. It was still there. They looked at me neurologically. It was still there. I can't tell you what I went through. That pain was still right here. I wrote this piece and I went, and you won't believe that I didn't put it together, but I didn't. I went, oh, that's where the gun was. And when I said that, within a couple of days, the pain was gone. So it was obviously something that I was emotionally holding on to, that the minute I recognized it, it went.
Wow. I got chills then. Ooh.
Weird. It's weird. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You knew the gun was, why wouldn't you associate it? I didn't. I thought there must be something wrong, really wrong. All the MRIs, all the x-rays I did, all the scans of my brain, nothing.
Because it's almost, isn't it, like, we expect the scars to be physical. You know, it's sort of easy, if you like, to identify a physical scar. Then there is something physically I can do about this, you know, whether it's treatment, physio, when it's a mental scar, and I suppose I'm speaking a little bit of the, you know, my experience growing up. Sometimes it can be something that I cannot deal with that. I cannot deal with a mental scar. If it's inside my head, I will ignore this. It will not go away, but I will do something else. We'll groom the dogs. We'll do the closet. We'll do absolutely anything but. And thankfully, in my experience, I've sought therapy. I have dealt with the mental scars, and without fail, it has to be facing it head on. So much easier said than done, but It has to be about facing, and that's how that pain starts to heal. But there are times I would not have known that it was a mental scar that was causing pain.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that, you'd think you'd associate it. I think he's allowed me to speak of this, so I'll speak of my son Buster, who is a medically retired Marine, and he has a traumatic brain injury. And he said it's, for Marines coming home, so much easier if someone can see and understand why they might not be okay. But if you can't see it, you go, what's up with him, you know? And that teaches me, I really try to hold on. When I meet someone who's challenging for me, I try to go, I don't know. I don't know what they've gone through. I don't know where they've come from and why this might be happening, because you can't see it all.
I mentioned at the beginning that there was some things I read in the book that I sadly didn't find surprising.
Like what?
Some of the treatment that happened behind the scenes. So obviously a specific example would be when Django was born, Sid was back on set a couple of hours later, and there was absolutely zero discussion about it. And for me, I mean, I am well aware that everything happens costs money, but that seems so cold, and it's so in transit. Surely could we, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, is there any way we just shift scenes around and, you know, maybe, you know, give you time with your child is one example. Some of the discussions that when you spoke to some of the performers from the original series, and there seemed to be an understanding of that's how Hollywood works.
That's just the way it is.
And it wasn't shocking. It was a little bit, yep, that's kind of what I've come to understand of the machine, particularly up into the 90s. That seems to now have really swung the other way. And I hope it has. I hope, you know, we are right in an understanding of it. Reading your interview with Jess Bush, for example, and how the look of it, this seems to be this shock of,
Yeah.
were you ever asked if you are, I don't know if I can
Yes.
swear on this, but if you were ever asked if you were, and she's like, no. I was like, I'm really happy at how surprised she was by that
Yeah.
question.
I think she said something like buildings would burn if that happened. And it was like, yay, yay, to not be in that trance of that's just the way it is. And that is a trance. That's an acceptance of an accommodation that is just, you understand, I accommodated, of course I did. I wanted to work. You understand why the women in the 60s did. But when you step back just a little bit, it's just sad that we had to do that.
And I think something that is highlighted in this book, and I think it's important for people to remember, is that progress isn't always on an upward climb, but the important part is to continue going even if you dip for a while. So as I said earlier, I'm still making my way through some of Star Trek, and one of the ones I also have not seen yet is Enterprise. But I am aware of how those characters are, and something that I found really intriguing by what you wrote is the idea that Voyager was so groundbreaking and progressive, and then Enterprise kind of took a dip in that progress. But the important part is that we picked it back up and we carried on, and Strange New Worlds basically proves that by continuing and persevering, we have two shows that were set before or around the original series, and where Enterprise failed, Strange New Worlds has said, we can tell a story based in this same time without falling back on those ways of telling stories of the 60s. And it felt like a real sense of achievement by also acknowledging the fact that we do take dips as well, but that's okay as long as you keep going and keep trying.
I really learned a lesson from what Brandon Braga told me about that. When he said, we thought we had done all the work on Voyager. We did all this for the women. We thought we were okay with that now. Now we could go on from there. And really, I don't think that's ever true. You can't go, okay, enough work on that. It's like everything slides so quickly.
It's like the price of complacency.
Yes.
We
Exactly.
did great, and you did in 2001.
Yeah. That's right.
On the Open Channel, the Instagram page, that was brilliant because we saw your discussion about Michelle Hurd, and that you obviously did interview her. It's a fabulous piece. So whoever is listening or watching this right now, do go to the Instagram page and watch that. It's excellent. I wanted to ask. So it's a slightly boring question. It's about, do you know what's the criteria from the publisher's point of view for, there is an interview sitting here, what makes the cut, what doesn't, and how much of that is communicated then to you?
Well, it wasn't communicated to me. So there was so much that I didn't know, but I have to couch that with, at the end, it's kind of like it's kind of like preparing a dinner party for 20 people. You have your lists, you're doing this, you know what you're doing, you've figured it out, you've pre-made stuff, and 20 minutes before the guests arrive, it's like, oh my God, and everything's going up in the air. I forgot this, I didn't write that down. And it's a little bit of chaos and deadline. So I think my experience, this was the first book I ever wrote, so I think it was a bit of that. And it's just like, it's got to be 300 pages. This really could have been so many more. I could have gone on for 5 more years interviewing people and writing about it. And the publishers had a time where it was like, no, it has to go. The people are ringing the doorbell now. Time to go. The turkeys on the floor will go with the rest of it.
I love that. That just sounds like me cooking every day. Those expectations that women are supposed to be in the kitchen, that is not me. Absolutely not. I'm a woman of 2024. Do not put Ellie in the kitchen.
But Ellie, tell me, what is your favorite thing to cook and eat that you make?
I love to make a good fajita pepper because it's easy. You know, roast some peppers, make some fajita mix, whack that in. Simple.
Delicious.
Simple but nice, you know? I could say ready meal and chuck it in the microwave, but, you know.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I just wanted to say as well, before we end, I just said being a woman in 2024, but one of the things that I really felt reading through this, beyond kind of my eyes opening to all of these different stories and the extent to the expectations and sacrifices, but the thing I really felt reading this was a real sense of gratitude for all of the women in this book and beyond who fought the fight when it was possible, who endured when it wasn't, and all of those actions paved the way so that women such as myself, such as Jess Bush, who she admitted, are now living in 2024 without having to deal with anywhere near as many hardships as all of these women had to go through. And I really felt a real sense of gratitude that those things happened so that I now don't have to experience that. So I want to thank you for that and everybody who told their story.
That's wonderfully said and wonderful to hear. Wonderful to hear. That's the connection and communication that I'm thrilled to hear about.
There was also a beautiful sense of inclusion. This is very much, obviously, you know, a woman's Trek, you know, the experience of women in Star Trek, and yet there are enough examples of saying that it wasn't like it was men versus women the whole time, which is, you know, again, it's something that you hope for, and then you get a bit worried and like, no, it wasn't like that all the time. And a lot of time there was a lot of support, and that I think comes across very strongly in the book as well. There are people who maybe weren't fantastic, but they are outnumbered, and that is a wonderful something that I have taken from the book as well. And I want to say thank you so much. Would you do a sequel?
If you say that to me right now, and I'm looking in this room, and no. But then when I think of all the women that I didn't get to talk to, dying to talk to, I go, there's so much to put down and communicate and learn from. I certainly learned from everyone I spoke to. So there's more learning to do for sure.
Is there, I suppose here's the $1 million question. What is your biggest takeaway from this process?
A shift in myself, certainly going through all of it. Realizing the value, and I've said it several times, but of people communicating and open a channel. That's what I know, that I'm aware that there is a lot of people in the Star Trek universe in the audience that don't like this, don't like that, argue and fight and all that stuff. But I still see Star Trek as a frequency where we know, the three of us know enough about each other because we've said the word Star Trek to be able to talk on a deep level right away with trust. And I think that's my most valuable takeaway.
That's a wonderful thing to learn. Yeah. Wonderful.
Dr. Nana Visitor, thank you so much.
Wow. So for those who do want to get their hands on the book, it is already available in the US, and from the 15th of October you can purchase it on Amazon in the UK. I did have to check that, but yes, the release dates were slightly different in different countries, but the 15th of October in the UK you'll be able to purchase. It is pre-order is already available, so I would highly recommend.
And the reviews are coming in. I was having a look just before we jumped on. It's already 5-star reviewed on Amazon UK, so the pre-reviews are going well. Of course, everyone, don't take our word for it. Pick up a copy. I don't want this to sound trite or trivializing. This book is important. This book is important, and I think It has a place in certainly every Trekkie's home, and people who might not identify as Trekkies.
Mm-hmm. And the one question...
Are there such people?
I'm told that there are. Certainly not many in my life.
No, not in mine.
And before we do go, there was one question that we did see on social media yesterday, and we did think, oh, that's probably a good thing we should ask. Are there any plans for an audiobook version? That was a question we saw.
I don't know. And I do hope that I get a chance to do it. I hope it's not someone else. I'd love to do a reading of it. But we'll see. But, Kate Mulgrew reading it, I kind of might step aside for that one. That could be very cool.
I agree. Our followers are very much aware how much I love Kate Mulgrew.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
huge pleasure.
Oh, it's an absolute treat getting to speak to you about this process. I'm so excited for everyone to get to read this, because also we've been talking about it for about 27 years, so I'm delighted it's finally...
At least. It feels like 60 maybe, but thank you to both of you. Thank you. It was a delight.
Genuine pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this abbreviated version of this podcast. Now, if you go to our audio platforms, you will get the full version of this podcast with this guest. So we really appreciate you subscribing to that, and you're just awesome and wonderful. Thank you so much.